Hello, Ospreys, and welcome to our 5-episode intuitive eating series, where the UNF Wellness Dietitians take you through the 10 principles of the intuitive eating framework. Please note this series is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a replacement for your individual healthcare needs. If you would like to utilize our nutrition counseling services, please email us to set up an appointment. We hope you enjoy.
Okay, so now we are on principle 5, which is discovering the satisfaction factor. I think this is my favorite principle. So Chelsea, how would you explain this one?
I was just about to say that I think it's my favorite as well, because eating is interesting because it's a necessary biological process, just like breathing and going to the bathroom, like we mentioned before, but it's unique in that we have the ability to also enjoy it and draw satisfaction. So maybe that's from social connections or, just enjoying grandma's cookies or whatever it is, you get to draw satisfaction from it. Whereas with something like breathing, it's more of like a sense of relief. So I think that is so interesting. We're like relieving the discomfort of being hungry, but we also get to enjoy it. I mean, that's pretty awesome, in my opinion. And I think what we can also draw into this principle here is it's a boost for your mental health to enjoy your eating experience. If we're always eating because we're eating in a way that we have to, because the diet mentality or the food police told us to, that situation probably isn't going to be as euphoric or enjoyable as if it was just a choice that you made because it sounded good. So I think we keep coming up with this brownie versus carrots situation. So I'm kind of curious, if you were working with a client to help them understand what it means to discover the satisfaction factor, and it was between those two foods, how would you walk them through it?
Yeah, so it's a really great comparison because the foods are so different and it really draws a very clear thing. So first you're going to kind of ask yourself, like, what are you in the mood for? When you think about the mouth feel, are you looking for something cool and crunchy, or are you looking for something warm and creamy? Those two very different things that a carrot gives you versus what a brownie gives you. And, how can you make this situation even more enjoyable? So if you're at your computer, working on something and you're eating those carrots, which is something you really truly wanted because you wanted the cool and crunchy, are you distracted? You could not be getting that full amount of satisfaction by being in the moment. So we really, even when it comes to satisfaction, the environment in which we're eating that food plays a role as well. Are we able to savor it and enjoy that food? And, and it's okay not to settle, within access to food. So we don't always have access maybe to those carrots that we're craving. And that's okay too. But when we do have access to it, you can reach for them and do it because that's what feels satisfying in that moment. And let's say that you start eating those carrots and you're like, this isn't exactly what I was looking for. I kind of wanted something creamy to go with it. Maybe ranch dressing would go great with these carrots. So now we've increased that satisfaction, still getting what we want from that food, but we've checked in with ourselves and said, does this food still taste good to us?
Great example. And I was just thinking of adding ranch into the picture, which is something you can very much do. If that's going to make something more satisfying to you, that's not wrong. That's not bad. That's more enjoyment that you get out of what your eating experience can bring you.
Absolutely. And if you're craving brownies and you're trying to eat carrots instead, you could eat an endless amount of carrots looking for the satisfaction of a brownie, and you're never going to find it. Mm-hmm. And it could be distracting. It could keep you from engaging in your studying, reading something or writing something because you can't stop thinking about that brownie. And it could be very distracting for your academic performance. So sometimes it's better just eat the brownie.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now we've got principle 6, which is to feel your fullness. So Chelsea, what does it mean to feel your fullness?
Yeah, so this is a great one. And I just want to add, because we haven't mentioned this so far, but yes, there's 10 principles. No, they're not necessarily meant to be linear or stepwise, like a 10-step checklist. But there is a reason why some of them are towards the end. And I think Feel Your Fullness is towards the end or the middle for a reason, because this principle can be really difficult if somebody has been regularly not honoring their hunger or honoring their cravings and, eating enough food, because your body probably isn't going to tell you to stop eating if it doesn't believe that it's going to receive regular nourishment. And that's a protective feature. That is one of those biological default settings that is a good thing, but we label it as a bad thing. And what we often see happening here is somebody didn't honor their hunger. So they go into their eating experience and they're extremely hungry. So the off button is muted or turned down a little bit. So maybe someone does eat past comfort, but we're not going to go straight to calling that overeating. We're going to call that makeup eating, because you're probably making up for lost time and your body is saying, we're not going to tell her to stop because we need that and she didn't give it to us earlier. We also see this when we regularly see this when someone's been actively dieting, because your body doesn't know the difference between a diet or light calorie restriction or starvation. And we see this with people that have lived with food insecurity, because there really wasn't a constant reminder that food was always going to be there, because it might not be. So that can also make someone not feel their fullness. What do you think, Kelly? What do you see come up with this one a lot?
Yeah, I mean, and if they haven't been a lot and then they start eating, their fullness almost hits too early. Like they're not actually hitting fullness, they're just hitting like a couple bites in, and they stop eating, and then they could either be hungry again and they're like, well, I shouldn't be hungry, I just ate and I ate to the point of fullness, so I shouldn't be hungry again. And that could go more of not honoring that hunger feeling, so like what you were saying before, and it's this vicious cycle. And at some point your body's like, I gotta get it. And binging could happen at that point, or eating to the point of uncomfortable fullness, and then you feel guilty, and then the cycle just starts all over again. So, it is an important part of intuitive eating, but it does, like you said, come a little bit afterwards. So like, Chelsea, what would you tell someone that like is nervous about hitting that fullness feeling or feeling it? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I would say that that's normal, because eating to fullness has been demonized for a long time. And if you're someone that's been actively dieting for a long time, it can be really scary to reach that point. And I would always check first to make sure that somebody is not actually under eating, because that is the most important piece. You can't rely on your fullness cues until you're fully nourished, but you can start to practice when you're on that path. So checking in with yourself, or maybe you are eating a little bit to the point of discomfort and you're like, but I'm still hungry, but I'm uncomfortable. Like, why is my body not telling me to stop? Well, that's a good moment to pause and think, okay, well, what did the rest of my day look like? What did yesterday look like? Maybe I didn't eat enough yesterday, or maybe, I waited a little bit too long. So I always say, be curious, but stay neutral and non-judgmental while you're asking yourself those questions. And it might even be like, you know what, like my lunch didn't have enough carbs in it today, and that's why I'm, feeling extra hungry today. But no matter what, giving yourself that unconditional permission to satisfy your needs, because the more often you do that, your body is learning to trust you, and you're learning to trust your body is telling you the right thing. That takes a long time, and that's okay.